Hi, welcome back to my channel. We are now in part 8. In part 7, we tackle about 2 misunderstanding about God's will. In here, we would know the right understanding of God's will. Come on, and let's start. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. To understand God's will rightly, we need an attitude of righteous rebellion. We would pray that God accomplishes His will. We must reject the notion that sin is normal and therefore we must accept it. Instead, we must righteously rebel against the world's ungodliness. It's unbelief of Jesus Christ and believers' disobedience that to do this to abandon key biblical teachings and accept powerlessness in prayer. Jesus was not resigned to the spiritual status quo. He preached and acted against sin. When Jewish leaders profaned God's house, He made a scourge of cords and drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen. And He poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And to those who were selling the doves, He said, "Take these things away. Stop making my Father's house a place of business." That is written in John 2, verse 15 to 16. We further must rebel against the idea that wickedness and corruption is somehow God's will that we must possibly accept. Nothing evil comes from God's hand, but only from Satan's. To ask the righteousness of God's will be done oftentimes means we have to pray for Satan's will to be undone. You can read that in the whole Psalms chapter 6 to 8 onwards, and Revelation 6 verse 10. In the 2 verses I mentioned, you need to read the whole chapter. To pray with the right understanding of God's will is to pray believing that He hears and answers our prayers. Lack of such faith is one of our greatest hindrances to effective praying. Ask yourself, yes, to pray for God's will to be done on earth, we must first make sure it is being done in us, in our lives. What are some aspects of God's will that are going unheeded in your own heart, even though they are far from mysterious, very clearly laid out in Scripture? Make this your prayer today, that His will would be done in you. God bless you, and see you on the other chapter.